Nellie McClung was a Canadian women's suffrage activist and author. She was politically active and worked to create various reforms in the Canadian government. She was born Helen Letitia Mooney in October 1873 in Chatsworth, Ontario, but moved to Manitoba in 1880 with her family. She was a teacher before marrying Robert McClung in 1896. Nellie McClung strongly supported prohibition because she felt that alcoholism took money away from the children who had an alcoholic father. She joined the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which gave her a platform from which to advocate her beliefs. Sowing Seeds in Danny, Nellie McClung's first book, became a bestseller and gave her opportunities to do author readings for audiences. She became an elocutionist and started doing public speaking on topics she was passionate about. In 1914, she was part of the Liberal Party Leaders' Campaign in Manitoba. During this time, she helped organize the famous mock parliament in which a parliament made up of women decided whether men should be given the right to vote. They used arguments that had previously been used to explain why women should not be able to vote, making the play entertaining and witty, but also showing the absurdity of the arguments used against women suffragettes. Miss McClung acted as Rodman Roblin, the Conservative Party leader in Manitoba at the time. In 1915, the Liberals won in Manitoba, but by then the McClung family had moved to Edmonton. However, Mrs. McClung's efforts led to women being given the right to vote in Manitoba in 1916, and throughout the following years, other Canadian provinces granted women the right to vote. Another famous event Nellie McClung helped organize was defining women as persons before the law so that women could become senators. Mrs. McClung and the 4 other women she worked with came to be known as the Famous Five. They brought their case before the Canadian Supreme Court, and when the court would not rule that women are persons, the 5 women went on to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in England. The Lord Chancellor found that in the British North America Act, the same act which had been interpreted as to not consider women persons, actually used the word person in other areas of the act to refer to both male and female people. Soon news spread across Canada that women were now persons and could become senators. Nellie McClung remarks in her book, The Stream Runs Fast, "It came as a surprise to many women in Canada, at least who had not known that they were not persons until they heard it stated that they were. A statue has been erected to commemorate these famous women." Nellie McClung made an impact on Canada and even the world as a writer, politician, and activist. She died at the age of 77 in 1951. Nellie McClung is of historical significance even though she was relatively forgotten for a decade after her death. However, feminists brought her name back to fame in the 1960s. Her life impacted Canadians for generations to come. Nellie McClung pushed women's rights in Canada, and her unparalleled spirit enabled many Canadian women to be able to vote before those in Britain and the United States. Nellie McClung was a strong force to encourage both men and women to support her cause. She left a mark on many areas of Canadian history, from prohibition to women in politics. Canadians today can still be inspired by her books, which really show her wit, sarcasm, and humor. Nellie McClung's story reveals how women have had fewer rights throughout history, but that the determination and perseverance of one person can make a positive difference for many. Mrs. McClung's life reminds us that there are still people in Canada today who are being discriminated against. It was only in 1960 that the Indigenous peoples in Canada were able to vote without giving up their status. Nellie McClung's actions encourage us to look for injustices and speak up for others. People like Nellie McClung can inspire us. Not everything Nellie McClung did is considered ethical by today's standards, and it is important to understand that she, like any historical figure, was not perfect. However, she created lasting change in Canada, and her story forces us to consider what changes we need in our world today so that we can keep progressing.